Hello and welcome back to the live stream of the Sydney 2023 International Piano Competition. And joining me now for a little chat is Carter Johnson, who is one of the lucky contestants who's made it through to the semi-finals. Thank you very much for finding some time to talk to me, Carter.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, and what do you think of Sydney? We will start with the obvious things. What were your impressions? Yeah?
Beautiful city.
Yes.
Beautiful city, clean. The harbor is there's nothing like it, and it's a place I think I might like to live someday if I were to get work here. So yeah,
okay,
it's a pleasure to be here.
What about these Australians? Are we that distant from Canadians?
No, but the country does seem, I think, distinctly a little bit more British than Canada. But there are also a lot of similarities because we both come kind of from the same place. So yeah,
indeed,
I feel like kinship.
Kinship. Well, of course, you're here to make music and to perform in a competition, and it's not exactly the easiest profession in the world to do. How's it been performing here?
The performances here have been wonderful. The audience has been super warm. There's also been quite a big audience, I think, which always gives, I think, at least for me, a little bit more confidence. And I've had a fantastic time.
I was very intrigued, of course, you and I have had a few discussions backstage about some of the repertoire that you chose, and it's not mainstream in many ways. You've really gone for slightly more demanding works as far as the listener goes, and as far as the repertoire goes. Are you quite committed to expanding the repertoire of the piano in some ways and performing other things?
I am. I want always to be playing the more standard works alongside a good amount of works that are kind of pushing the envelope a little bit. And whenever I find a work which is not played very frequently, which I really like and I think is a great work, I almost think of it as sort of almost a duty to play it, because if nobody else is playing it, but I think it should be played, then I need to play it. So that's how it is with a lot of the music that I'm playing here.
What are Canadian audiences like as far as their reception to sort of slightly more challenging programs?
I would say they're not so different that they would be anywhere else. However, in Canada, there's like in any country, there's a lot of pushing Canadian composers and Canadian music, which at least the audiences that I know famously think is very weird and very strange. So they are exposed to a lot of that music, and through that, sometimes they like it and sometimes they don't, but there is sort of an opening of listening to those kinds of pieces through that avenue of Canadian music.
Well, of course, one of the works you performed in the first round was Carl Wein's Toccatissimo.
Yes.
What was it like encountering some Australian music? Is that the first piece you played?
I actually played two. I played two Australian pieces in the first round. The Toccatissimo was the one I chose first, but the requirement was that it was 7 minutes of music, and the Toccatissimo was maybe 5 to 5.5. So then I also found a short piece by Andrin Pertu, who is the other Australian composer on my program, which I played before the Vine, because Vine is, a more well-known Australian composer. Of course, I wanted to also find something that maybe wasn't getting quite as much attention as that work, and I put them together, and I really liked both pieces, not just for the pieces themselves, but for the way I thought that the program ended up flowing together. I thought all of the choices worked just the way I wanted them to.
Yeah, and you and I had a little bit of a chat about a piece that you played by Grażyna Bazichewicz. I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly, but which I found rather intriguing. A Polish composer.
Yes.
Tell us about that piece, because it's rather interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. I did a competition a couple of years ago of Polish music, and it wasn't just Chopin and Szymanowski. Actually, you were only allowed to play one Chopin etude. That's it. No more Chopin, because they wanted you to play pieces from Polish composers who were not so well known. So I played that piece on that competition. So I've been getting to know a lot of Polish music, actually, but that was one of the pieces which I actually had started learning before I knew about the competition. I had heard it played. I'm actually not sure where I first heard it played, but I thought it was a fantastic piece, and it's not played very much. I find it actually quite accessible for audiences. It usually seems to come off quite well as far as they're concerned, and as far as I'm concerned, it's a it's just a fantastic, very effective work. So I've been playing it pretty frequently over the past couple of years.
Okay. I notice now as we move into the semi-finals, you're also not staying with well-known repertoire. You're actually challenging us a little bit further. Tell us about the various programs you've got sorted for that.
So today I played a program of music which was themed around music which was either Baroque or Neo-Baroque, or paying tribute to the Baroque in some way. So I had 2 Shostakovich preludes and fugues, which the connection is obvious there. Then I had the 3rd Hindemith Sonata, which is I think Hindemith, his compositional language owes a lot to the Baroque, specifically the counterpoint of it. And in all these works there are fugues, so that piece ends with a giant fugue. And then I had the only actually Baroque work was the Capriccio on the Departure of a Beloved Brother by Bach, again ending with a fugue. And then I played Le Tombeau de Couperin, which is the most standard piece on my program, maybe the most standard piece I'm playing in the whole competition. And in that one, the fugue is this tiny little gem hidden in the middle, rather than the culmination of the work. So yeah, it was a wonderful program to put together. I had fun kind of dreaming it up, as well as playing it. So
yes, of course, you never know you're going to be performing these things until you actually
that's correct.
Work your way through and actually get accepted into the next round.
That's
which
correct.
Is quite difficult for many people to actually understand the process that's happening there. I might be playing this and I might be playing this, if I get that far. But of course, let's talk a little bit about now the next stage, which is, of course, chamber music, which is something that you've been busy with all of your life as well. And in particular, now a Schubert sonata, very beautiful sonata for violin and piano. Why did you choose that?
I chose... Well, actually, I will just say that I chose the sonata against the advice of all of the teachers that I talked to. There's a list of 6 violin sonatas and we had to choose one from the list paired with sort of encore-like pieces afterwards. And I had played a handful, not all of them, but a handful of them. So I thought I want to play something that I've played already. And then I kind of settled on either the Schubert or the Brahms Sonata number 2, and all my teachers were telling me to pick the Brahms. They said it's safer, and I understand, from a competition perspective why that would be the case. But when I had to fill out my application, I just thought I love the Schubert so much, I want to play it so much, and I just said, forget it, I'm just going to play it. So I hope that pays off for me. I hope I don't, get eliminated because of that, and then I get a bunch of I told you so's. But from the perspective of, how it's gone this week in rehearsing the sonata, my first rehearsal went really, really well. So I'm, as of right now, really, really happy with my choice.
Oh, that's good to hear. I mean, I personally also really love that, but I also love the Brahms. I mean, it's really difficult for me to choose as well, which one I would. So I understand your predicament there as well. Nice. But then your encore, so to speak, is Chrysler. So that's really quite different for you as well, isn't it? Yes. We haven't seen you doing any of that sort of music. So that's interesting. Where did that come from?
I did not choose the Chrysler specifically. I mean, the Schubert and the Chrysler came as a packaged deal.
Right.
And I really chose the program more for the first piece than for the second piece. So I just so happened to be playing the Chrysler, which is really quite different from the Schubert. But a lot of fun. And actually, I play with a lot of string players and other instrumentalists, at their auditions and lessons and concerts and this kind of thing. And so this is the sort of piece, the Chrysler, that you wouldn't often hear in the chamber music round of a competition, of a piano competition, but in a violin competition or a violin jury or something like that. I play this kind of music all the time. So it's kind of interesting to play it in this setting also. How
is it for you moving away from the solo repertoire into this chamber music aspect, and actually not being on stage by yourself and having rehearsals with another person and working this way?
It's the best thing ever.
Yeah.
It's much more, as soon as I got into, the semifinals and I had my rehearsal with the violinist yesterday, it was like a warm blanket was around me. It was so nice to finally play with someone else. It's just, there's something less stressful about it. And just, it makes it so much easier to make it about making beautiful music rather than being stressed. So yeah, at least for me.
Of course, a couple of times we run into each other over the last days and you've been busy texting, or you've just come off stage and you had to send a text quickly. It's because your wife's been and your parents have been watching you back home.
Yes, that's right.
How's that reaction been?
Well, it's great. I mean, they're always so encouraging. I mean, I know that my wife knows exactly where all the mistakes were because she hears me practicing 4 to 6 hours a day.
Okay.
But
Is she a musician as well?
yeah, she is a pianist and a violinist.
Right.
And so they're all rooting for me. And it's wonderful to have not only a warm, physical audience, as I said, but also people who love me all over the world, texting me. And sometimes my family texts me in the middle of my performance. They'll go, "Oh, I love this movement," and I don't know what movement they're talking about because they sent it while I was playing. But it's still nice to get that kind of feedback.
Of course it is. Of course it is. And you've got 2 small children as well, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and are they following Dad as he goes? Or
Yes. If it's not their bedtime, they will watch the live stream and they enjoy it very much. But we also try to put them to bed on time because otherwise, disaster the next day. So when they can, they are watching.
Okay. So, if things go well, you'll move into the finals. You've chosen, I think it's Mozart 17 in the G major and the Schumann Concerto.
Yes.
Tell us about those 2 pieces.
I really don't know if I could be playing 2 more lovely concertos for the final. They're both very close to my heart. The Mozart, it's a happy accident that I'm playing this piece. In school last term, our seminar topic was Mozart concertos, and we had to pick a Mozart concerto to play. And by the time I got to the sign-up sheet, there were only a few left. And I said, whatever concerto I learn for this, I also want to be able to play it in Sydney, which is coming up. And the only concerto that lined up, both were on the list, was this concerto. I didn't know it at all, but I just said, I guess I'm going to learn it. And then I started learning it, and now it's my favorite Mozart concerto.
Yes,
so I really got very lucky that happened to be the one. And then the Schumann I've played for a little bit longer. And I have a personal connection with the work and with Schumann. And when my wife was pregnant with our first kid, the 3rd movement of that concerto was the one piece that caused him to kick like crazy.
Oh, wow.
So
it's got good taste too.
I have so there's that kind of nostalgia associated for it with me also. But yeah, should I get to play both of those pieces, it would be just an incredible experience.
Well, we keep our fingers crossed and everything in that respect. One last little question before we finish off. What does it mean for you to be a musician in this day and age? With so many things happening in the world, and as a father and all these existential crises that we're sort of facing in the world, what's the job of a musician for you, do you think?
My answer is pretty simple. I think my job as a musician would be to make as beautiful music as possible, and however that's able to touch people is out of my hands. Although I hope it does, but my job is just to make music which is as sincere and as real and beautifully played as I can. And so I hope that it brings joy and happiness to a lot of people. And that's about it.
Carter Johnson, thank you so much for speaking to me today.
Thank you.
And congratulations once again, making it into the semi-finals of the 2023 Sydney International Piano Competition. We cross our fingers and wish you all the very best and hope it goes well.
Thank you very much.